Not sure if I've got enough laptops here. All right, hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and if you're after a new premium, thin and light, aka Ultrabook kind of laptop, then, well, you've clicked on the right video. These are 10 of my top picks right now, but if you think I've missed any great options, then share your recommendations in the comments below as well. And if you do enjoy the video, a like and subscribe would be lovely. Let's start with this guy, the Dell XPS 13. That was dangerous. The Dell XPS 13 Plus. I'm gonna have to move these laptops now, this is getting silly. And it's just like the regular XPS 13, but with slightly better overall specs, a bigger battery, better camera and speakers, and well, most obviously we have this crazy futuristic iRobot-esque design. What do you think? Now, not everyone is a fan of this design and the no gap keyboard, and also there is no visible edge to the touchpad. You kind of just have to, well, feel your way around, and when it stops moving the cursor, you've gone too far. We've also got this capacitive touch bar at the top for the function row, and particularly in this platinum ice color, I think it's one of the most stunning looking laptops I've ever seen. And this almost bezel-less 16:10 display is a real highlight. And there are actually 3 screen options. We get Full HD LCD non-touch, 3K OLED touch, albeit 100 nits less bright than the others, or a full 4K LCD touchscreen. I've got the OLED model here because, well, it's kind of hard to go back to regular LCDs after you've enjoyed the deep inky blacks and rich colors and other cliche terms of an OLED, or indeed an AMOLED, which I'll come to later on the Samsung laptop. It's a beautiful screen, and actually I think the 3K resolution you get with this OLED option is the best balance of sharpness and battery life. So that would be my pick, although it does add to the price a little bit. It's also pretty powerful given its size, with Intel's latest 12th generation P series of chips. So in terms of performance, they're significantly better than last year's U series, but still not quite up there with the more power-hungry H series. And that's together with up to 32 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage. So the XPS 13 Plus starts at about £1,200, which puts it pretty much right up against the new MacBook Air M2. Although once you spec this with 16 gigs of RAM and maybe that OLED screen, we're looking at around $1,500. So it can get quite pricey. And if you're not fussed on some of these upgrades, or more likely you just don't like the design, then the regular XPS 13 or the 2-in-1 could also be worth looking at. Okay, moving on. And love or hate Apple, you've got to admit their laptops are bloody good, especially since they introduced the M1 last year, and now we've got the M2 in this guy, the MacBook Air M2. So this just came out, but it's not as revolutionary as the 2020 M1 Air, which is still on sale for about £250 less than this, and I reckon is still the better value option if you just want a good all-round MacBook. However, if you fancy a leaner, meaner, faster, and all-round better MacBook Air with its M2 chip, thinner bezels, much improved webcam, we get MagSafe, and of course, most importantly, some fancy color options. This £1,250 MacBook Air M2 is arguably the best thin and light laptop in the world. You might disagree. I would still say the base Air is better in terms of value for money, but if you want a premium Mac experience and you don't want the heavier, more powerful, and arguably better MacBook Pro 14, then this is the laptop for you. It is quite expensive, especially when you start upping the specs. If you go to 16 gigs of RAM and 512 storage, and actually importantly, the 512 storage is double the speed of the base 256, then you're looking at about 1600, 1650, which is getting frustratingly close to the MacBook Pro 14. But then again, this will last you an awful long time, and it is just a joy to use. So that's the MacBook, but moving on, this video has in its title Thin and Light. Probably, I haven't written it yet. But you can't have a thin and light laptop video without including LG Gram laptops. And I've got 2 of the brand spanking new ones. We've got the 16, that one's the wrong way around, and the 17. It does also come in smaller size options, which are also cheaper, but these are the ones that LG sent for review. And actually, I think the bigger ones are kind of more interesting because the whole point of these Grams is that you can get a big screen in a thin and light form factor, which you can't really get elsewhere. I mean, just look at this, 17-inch screen, 1.35 kilograms, 16-inch, 1.2, which is lighter than the 1.24 kilogram XPS 13 Plus. And you're getting that significantly bigger screen. Now, the compromise with these has always been the material, this sort of magnesium alloy they use. It's a bit plasticky feeling, That hasn't changed much. But what has changed with these new 2022 models is we get the latest 12th generation Intel P series of chips. And so while these may not be the best looking or the most premium feeling Ultrabooks, if you're carrying it around all day and weight is really important to you, you want solid performance with the latest hardware, and also, as I say, you want the options for bigger screens, well, this could be right up your alley. Check this out as well. It's the LG View Plus. They actually sent it along with the grams here, and while there is normally a stand that you get in the box, I'm just trying to demonstrate this quickly. It is essentially an external screen that they'll give you for free if you buy one of these from LG's website. Normally it costs you about £300, $350. That is a very cool setup. I like that, and obviously it powers it through the USB-C here as well. So considering these LG grams are on the pricier side, you're definitely paying a premium for that sort of thin and lightweightness. If you can get it with this Plus View chucked in for free, then it makes it a lot more tempting. Alternatively, have a look at this, the new Samsung Galaxy Book 2 Pro. It comes in both 13 and 15-inch versions, starting at $999 or $1099 respectively here in the UK, which is not too bad at all. There are also 5G versions of this, and there's a flippy, twisty 2-in-1 Pro 360 if you need a touchscreen tablet experience. It doesn't quite beat the grams on weight for the similar size model, but it's very close. This is still one of the thinnest and lightest laptops you can buy. I've got the 15-inch model here with this gorgeous AMOLED screen, but can you guess what my one criticism is going to be? 16:9. It's not the end of the world, but this is actually in the minority now, as most laptops come with the taller 16:10 aspect ratio. So it just feels a little bit smaller and more cramped than some of the others. But it's probably not a deal breaker really, and there is a lot going for this. We get the latest 12th gen Intel P series inside, as I say, an AMOLED screen, although still only 1080p, there isn't a high resolution option, also only 60 Hz, so the AMOLED stands out, the rest a bit meh. But arguably this combines the more premium aesthetic of, say, the XPS with the lightweight chassis of the Gram. And the starting price of £1,000 isn't too ridiculous. So that's the Galaxy Book 2 Pro. Very thin and light. This next laptop is, well, not so thin and light. It's the new Acer Swift 3, but I wanted to include it because actually it's one of the more powerful and more affordable laptops out there, and we get a gorgeous screen. The Swift 3 comes with Intel's 12th gen H series of processors, which are a good deal more powerful than the P series you'll find in a lot of these new ultra thin and lights. So that's better for photo editing or having tons of Chrome tabs open, maybe even a little bit of gaming, although there isn't a dedicated GPU. But as well as some beefy hardware on the inside, the screen is a real standout. It's a 14-inch 16:10 Quad HD OLED display, which in my book is exactly what you'd want for a laptop like this. We get a couple of full-size USB-A's, we get a couple of Thunderbolts as well, and also a full-size HDMI. No SD card reader though, which is a bit of a shame. I think that's the only thing I would have liked to have seen. But the screen's gorgeous, it's got some good performance, and it's also a bit more affordable than these other options. This starts at £800 for the i5, the i7 is £1,000, although if you do want a slightly more premium, slightly fancier design, then it's worth looking at Acer's Swift 5 lineup. Now from Acer to Asus, this is one of my favorite Ultrabooks so far this year. It's the ZenBook S13 OLED. It's the only AMD powered laptop in my top 10, and it's also one of the first to come with the new Ryzen 7 6000 series. I've got the 6800U in here, which trades blows with Intel's 12th gen P series in CPU benchmarks, but this is significantly more powerful in the graphics department. And somehow they squeezed all that into this absolutely tiny chassis that weighs just 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds. Only the 13-inch LG Gram weighs less, and that's only by like 35 grams. This is incredibly thin and light, it really is. You're not going to feel this in your backpack at all. And that's together with a stunning Quad HD OLED screen, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage, and for that spec we're looking at £1,300, which makes it relatively good value. I mean, I would buy it just because it's got the Star Trek communicator on it. I mean, sorry, the Asus logo. But no, this is definitely one of the best laptops I've used this year, and I'll leave a link at the end if you want to watch my full review of this. Next up, I want to talk about this. Well, I don't actually have it with me. It's the new Huawei MateBook X Pro, the new 2022 version. I've not been hands-on with it myself just yet, but I've been a big fan of Huawei laptops for quite a few years now. And this updated X Pro gives us a slight redesign. We have this new ink blue color. It weighs just 1.26 kilograms, so similar to the XPS 13. And we get this gorgeous 14.2-inch Quad HD OLED and 90 Hz touchscreen. which makes it the first laptop in my top 10 to have a higher refresh rate, which I am a big fan of, although this squarer 3:2 aspect ratio may not be everyone's cup of tea, as you get bigger black bars when watching movies. We also now get the newer 12th Gen P series chips, as well as 16 gigs of RAM and a 1TB SSD as standard, which I guess goes some way to explain the fairly high price. So the MacBook X Pro is definitely one of the more luxury ultrabooks out there. It's quite pricey, but it is very nice. And if you're wondering, are there any issues with buying Huawei laptops? No. I wouldn't recommend the phones because you can't access the Google Play Store, but the laptops are good to go, there's no issues. Okay, number 8. Let's go back to ASUS for this guy, the ZenBook 14 Pro Duo OLED. And it's all about that screen. Well, screens. The main display is a 14.5-inch Quad HD OLED 120Hz display, which makes it feel incredibly fast to use. And as usual, the OLED screen really pops. But then we have this second screen pad, which is great for multitasking, and it just gives you that bigger screen laptop experience on a relatively smaller laptop. Not only that, but this also packs in the beefiest specs of any laptop in my top 10. With Intel's 12th Gen H series processors up to an i9, and also dedicated graphics in the form of the RTX 3050 Ti. And that's squeezed into a chassis that's just 17.9mm thick and weighs 1.7 kilograms. So it is a bit heavier than most laptops at this size, but the trade-off is you're getting significantly better performance. Okay, number 9, we're almost there, you're doing very well. But I do want to show you, well not show you, tell you about another laptop. The Lenovo Yoga Slim 7i Pro X, which is a heck of a name. Sadly, I don't have a review sample with me here just yet, but it is worth a look. Because right now, on Lenovo's website, the base model with a 12th Gen H series i5, 512 storage, 16 gigs of RAM, and a stunning 14.5-inch 3K 120Hz display is under £1,000, which makes it pretty crazy value for money. You can also spec it with a dedicated GTX 1650 or an RTX 3050 for more graphical grunt, and together with that 120Hz screen makes it quite a nice casual gaming laptop. It looks good, we get 100-watt fast charging, and it's still reasonably lightweight at just 1.45 kilograms. So the Yoga Slim 7i Pro X is a really good all-rounder and definitely one to shortlist. Okay, number 10, and I know some of you are going to roll your eyes at this, but I think this is worth mentioning. It's the iPad Air or Pro, I've got the Pro 12.9 here, with a Magic Keyboard. Now, I will say that I still don't think iPads can be full laptop replacements, even with iPad OS 16, which keeps being delayed actually, but I'm running the beta on here. It's still not quite up there, but there are advantages to this. Firstly, the App Store, great for productivity apps and video streaming. I mean, I use my laptop to watch videos and movies when I travel, so being able to download them in their native apps is really useful. The Magic Keyboard is lovely to type on, and if you combine it with the Apple Pencil, this is one of the best devices for an artist or a creator. The Thunderbolt 3 port lets you transfer files relatively easily, plus of course we get the Apple ecosystem. I don't know about you, but I can't live without AirDrop. But it does raise another question, which should you buy between these two? Because they're roughly similar prices, although it can get a bit complicated if you go for the new Gen 5 Air and pair with the keyboard. That's a bit cheaper, but then the Pro is more expensive, and also depends what spec you go with this. I would say, bottom line, for essentials, if you just need a laptop, well, it makes sense to get the laptop. I think the MacBook Air M1 right now is still probably the best all-around laptop you can buy for the money, and of course with student and teacher discounts you can get it even cheaper. But if you are going to use the touchscreen, if you are going to use the App Store and you want a really good travel companion, then I would still highly recommend this setup. It's lovely, I use it all the time. Although it is a shame that the new iPad OS 16, which I'm running the beta version of here, does add some nice new features, but still no desktop class applications. I guess that makes sense though, because people then would just stop buying this. Also bear in mind that new iPad Pros are expected probably in October or November, so if you are going to shell out over $1,000 for this CAS setup, maybe worth waiting a few weeks. So hopefully that was helpful, and if you do fancy checking out any of these, I'll leave links in the description below, and as I say, if you've got any of the great recommendations, leave a comment. And for more laptop reviews, and well, just more of me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat. That was terrible.